Hello and welcome to your in-depth monthly horoscope for May 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to give a collective overview and some standout details, but then I will go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces and explore those in much greater depth. Now, if you are a returning viewer to my channel, thank you so much for joining me once more. If you're new here, it's great to have you with us. This is very much a community, so please do share any thoughts you have. I do interact with each one, and I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. Now, if you would like to ascend above zodiac astrology and get a much greater understanding of your life force and prospects, if you do give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place of birth, I can prepare for you your life roadmap report. This will give you an understanding of the patterns that are repeating in your life, the more challenging ones, but also the ones that you can seize upon more successfully so. Gaining a greater awareness of those will help you to make greater progress, gain greater traction. And in my special package of 30% off, you can also get your 12-month personal forecast. No 2 charts are the same, totally unique to you, and can give you searing insights. If you don't know your time of birth, I've developed a new report package which doesn't include an ascendant and assumes the moon at midday, and this is based on your sun sign. And if you really enjoy YouTube videos, this will be very reflective of what your sun is. Please see below for more information on that too. Now, as we come into this very important month for resources, the economy, everyday money, the cost of living, we do have a conjunction, an exact cazimi as it's known, between the Sun and Mercury on day 1. And that could give us the opportunity, despite the fact that Mercury is in retrograde, to rethink something in a more successful way. But it is true to say that through the first 3 days, the Sun and Mercury are very closely aligned. Now, Mercury comes out of its retrograde on the 15th, but it doesn't come out of its post-retrograde shadow until the 31st. So this theme of finances is going to be quite consistent through the month. Also on the 5th, we have a lunar eclipse. This lunar eclipse is in Scorpio. If this seems to ring a bell, if we think back to last 8th of November, we had a lunar eclipse in Taurus. So this is the mirror image of that eclipse. And I feel it's going to give us a lot of clues as to how things will start to move forwards in terms of those economic trends. Because this one also features the disruptor planet of Uranus. In fact, in week 2 of this month, the Sun is very close to Uranus. And this is pushing us to evolve. Society and the world of work, for example, is changing at the speed of light. Trying to resist it is not necessarily going to be the best way forwards. And of course, the sign of Taurus is very much about trying to adhere to what's stable and gives us a sense of security and is consistent. And I think that could prove a little bit futile. But on the 7th, Venus, the planet which governs the sign of Taurus, moves from the quick-witted and flirty Gemini, where it is for the first week, and moves into the home-loving and security-loving sign of Cancer. And it will be there through to the end of the month. If there are any hopes to improve where you live or move or add to the family, they're boosted by that transition. It is true to say, however, that at that precise moment, Venus is in what's known as a quincunx with Pluto, a 150-degree angle. So anything around a romantic situation needs to take into account what the motives are, and Pluto often disguises those motives and uses charm or money in order to get its way. So just be conscious of that. But in week 2, we do have that conjunction between the Sun and Uranus that I spoke of before. So being flexible in our approach to resources is absolutely vital. Mercury goes direct on the 15th. On the 16th, so Jupiter moves into the sign of Taurus after Jupiter's rather eccentric journey through the signs of Aquarius, Pisces and Aries in the last couple of years. Now, Jupiter in the sign of Taurus is very positive for the economy. I think it's a much more self-confident position, and that's something to savour. But on the 19th, we have a new moon in the sign of Taurus, which is quite late, and therefore it links up with Pluto. Now, Pluto started its retrograde at the start of this month, but in this particular equation is a force for good, and also Neptune and Mars are feeding into the new moon in a very positive way. I think there is going to be better news. We all know that bonds, government bonds, have taken quite a hammering over the last few months, and equities have stood up quite well. But I think there is going to be some better news. Inflation will potentially come down. People will start to feel a bit less oppressed. Energy prices hopefully will also drop too. But the 20th does see the rather charismatic energies of Mars in Leo begin. And this is going to be really important because, of course, we've got a long journey of Venus in the sign of Leo this year, a 4-month transit. And Mars moving into Leo is quite the show-off. So if you are someone who's interested in performance, in music, amateur dramatics, you have a creative talent that you want to manifest, then this can be a very important transit. But I should say that across weeks 2 and 3, Mars in late Cancer and then early Leo is going to be face to face with Pluto. And that's not so good, I feel, in terms of perhaps the potential for increased tension around domination. And domination these days seems to be played out on the world stage by very aggressive policies to do with nationalism. So hopefully this is not going to be a spark of some kind of increase in violence on the world stage. But Mars opposite Pluto is, you know, the two ruling planets of Scorpio. This is kind of like the OK Corral, but on the world stage. And I think obviously with the potential for some big clashes in terms of cultures, that is a little bit concerning. But if there is somebody that you were really attuned to in a sexual sense, this is going to heighten the desire motivation hugely. Now on the 21st, the Sun does make its way into the speedy and quick-witted and flirty Gemini, where it will be for the last 10 days of the month. But the ruler of the sign of Gemini, Mercury, is actually forging from the 6th through to the 28th, a fabulous link with Saturn. And Saturn in Pisces may be a more thoughtful energy, and maybe one that asks us to grapple with our emotions more. But I feel that it's important to understand, you know, the past investment of time, energy and emotion or care that have gone into certain situations, and to see the benefits that those things can have in terms of the more physical plane. Now, it is also the case that the Sun is going to be forging an extremely charismatic link with Mars across weeks 3 and 4 and the last few days of the month. Now, this is going to go across 4 zodiac signs because both are going to be moving. So that's exciting in itself. The first one, between Taurus and Cancer, is very much about working with the emotional plane in terms of how we feel in terms of physical security. But once the Sun bustles its way into the air sign of Gemini, and Mars moves into the very grand and proud fire sign of Leo, I think it all gets much more outgoing and much more extrovert. So I think there can be quite a social dimension that really develops towards the end of this month. Also, the Sun forges a trine, again across 4 zodiac signs, with Pluto from the 19th through to the 24th. So some big evolutions can go on in our situations. With Pluto, it can be inner changes, or it can be the more physical world around us. But I think what we can all expect is things to speed up and become more exciting. But once Mercury comes to the end of its post-retrograde shadow on the 31st, then we're really going to be seeing a real sign of green shoots, I feel, when it comes to resources, as long as there is no big combustible event in terms of countries really getting into conflict towards the end of this month as Mars and Pluto face up. But essentially this is a month where I feel that the lunar eclipse provides a mirror for the next 6 months. So by the time we get around to the 8th of November this year, I think we will have worked our way through quite a lot of readjustments. And obviously the cost of living increase has been extremely painful for a lot of people and is not to be something that commented on in a light way. But I think as we get around to the end of the influence of this particular lunar eclipse, we really will see things starting to unwind and we get a clearer picture, and hopefully things will become a lot more affordable for a lot more people, and there'll be greater liquidity around all of our finances and a greater sense of security. But of course the sign of Taurus is not just about money, it's all about our self-worth too, and also our sense of physical security. So if there are ways that we can be a bit thriftier or make the most of food that we cook ourselves, get more earthy in our approach to life in general, that can be a great way to surf the energies that this incredible month does provide for us. Now please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. Gemini, the 21st is really exciting for you because the Sun returns to your sign after an 11-month absence. But also I'd pencil in the 7th because that could be a time when your financial situation really goes through a big uplift, a big metamorphosis that can absolutely delight you. And of course, generally for us all, because of the Taurus energies that are unfolding, resources is something that we've got to be mindful of. But for you, the collective energies in this sign is very much more about the psychological plane. But I think that once Mars moves into the sign of Leo and angles with the Sun as it arrives in Gemini, this is terrific for you. You can often be a very persuasive communicator, very passionate and very nimble. You know, if you need to flex to meet different audiences and get on with different types of people, you have an absolute gift for it. But it's your inner world that can be transformed so strongly this month. I think there could be times when you do feel a bit isolated, or maybe the deeper threads within your situation, perhaps to do with coming to terms with some past rather painful events, or the sides of your nature that you may even not feel so comfortable with, or even your fears and anxieties. They're all going to be showcased by the lunar eclipse and your ruler being in retrograde through to the 15th. And because Uranus has been such an edgy influence in terms of your nervous system, of course it does depend where your planets are in the sign of Gemini, just how much Uranus is having an impact at the present time. But I feel that even if you do feel a little bit unsettled, once Jupiter moves mid-month into the sign of Taurus, there is huge potential to dive into the more spiritual dimension of your nature. So it's not just the outer buzzy interactive world that can really come to life from the 20th and the 21st with Mars and the Sun's move. It's very much how you view yourself, your deeper connection to your soul is really something that can burgeon hugely in parts of this month. But what about that big standoff between Mars and Pluto? If you are someone who's likes more adventurous outdoor activities, or you like to travel and you like to travel quick and fast, I would proceed with a degree of caution, because Mars opposite Pluto across the 3rd, 9th houses is not a time to rush your moves anywhere. Better to go the more scenic route and take your time and just kick back and enjoy it, because there could be some frustrations around that. And also, you could encounter someone who feels just as fiercely impassioned about their worldview as you do, and that could lead to, some locked intentions in weeks 3 and 4. But I think once your ruler Mercury comes out of its post-retrograde shadow on the 31st, you can feel easier. And I think the Sun's alignment with Pluto, despite Pluto going into retrograde on the first day of this month, is going to be particularly key for you as the Sun links to Pluto once it moves into Gemini. So something's shifting in your world, and I think it could be something that's opening up. But it's quite ironic that there's so much potential to open up your relationship with the side of yourself that you may have been less conscious of, or less prepared to look at, or may have felt a bit fearful of. That is all a rich possibility too.